Depends what you mean by observed. I think there is some observational evidence for it, yes. Okay. The evidence for it is that we look at the cosmic microwave background and it matches the predictions of models of inflation that have what's called a flat potential. So what that means, well, I don't know how much you know about this stuff. Okay. Okay. So the models of inflation have a flat potential, have a property that they generate a multiverse. And when Planck measured the cosmic microwave background, they reported back that the best fit models are the models that generate a multiverse.
That's what you're saying, your colleague. Are there major scientists in that field who disagree with that view and state that?
Oh yes.
There are?
Yeah. No, but that doesn't mean there's major scientists that disagree with almost everything. That doesn't mean there's no evidence. It means that the evidence is not, I agree, the evidence is not overwhelming. I never said it was. There's controversy about it. It's not definitive. I don't dispute that for a second. And it may be false.
And it never can be.
Because it may be false.
The point is this, to make it very simple, I understand your point with regards to cosmic background radiation, things like that.
Yeah.
But the reality is this. Imagine if we live in this universe, which is one bottle.
Yes.
And the universe we're trying to observe is another universe, which is a bottle completely separate.
Yes.
As we live in this area where we're trying to observe things within this area,
yes,
we would never be able to observe the other universe. It's impossible.
So what?
Okay, now I'll explain to you why. But that's the problem, because the empirical evidence we have is the universe that we live in.
Yes.
It's fine-tuned to a degree that it's highly improbable that everything came out by chance. It's highly improbable that if one small thing was changed from all the different variables, you know, with the expansion of the universe, if it was too slow,
So the expansion of the universe was, if it was too slow, it would collapse back in on itself too fast. So you're talking about the fine-tuning of Omega, is that correct?
Fine-tuning of Omega. I mean, many scientists have observed the fine-tuning of the universe.
Okay. Well, let's deal with one thing at a time. Right? Let's deal with one thing at a time.
Yeah.
So two issues that you raised. We can't observe another universe, therefore we can never confirm that it exists. Right? Okay. And two, the fine-tuning of the expansion rate of the universe, right?
Not just the expansion.
Well, we have to deal with one thing at a time.
But there's multiple variables.
We have to deal with one thing at a time.
But fine-tuning involves...
All right, can you let me answer?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your name, by the way?
My name's Awais.
Okay. All right. So first off, you say that you can never observe another universe, okay? But in physics, we don't always need direct observations. We can have indirect observations. Okay, we can infer things. We can never directly observe a quark. Okay, but that doesn't mean there's no evidence for quarks. Okay, so we can collect evidence that can up our probability of a theory being true. Okay. So in the case of the multiverse, there are ways that we can collect evidence. So for example, one thing, as I said, was we can look at which models of inflation match the data. Okay?
Inflation, you mean inflation in terms of the expansion of the universe?
Yes. Okay.
Now why would that be? Again, let's say I'm an amateur in this field.
Okay. I'm not a professional either.
Okay. Now what I'll say to you is, I understand you've read a paper, you've interviewed somebody.
Yes.
Who's provided evidence that the cosmic background radiation proves there is multiverse.
No, I never said proof.
It infers.
Never said proof.
It infers.
Okay. There is some evidence. It's not overwhelming evidence. I want to be clear. I don't want to mislead people in thinking we've proven the multiverse. That's not true. Okay? What I'm saying is that the statement that there's no evidence and that we can never collect any evidence, that is false. Okay?
In your opinion.
And in others' opinions.
And in a lot of opinions, that is false.
Oh, it depends what you mean by a lot. I think the consensus in cosmology is that inflation is the best explanation of the origin of cosmic structures. And if you look at people who are experts in inflation, they would agree that inflation implies a multiverse. Okay? Now, I agree it's controversial. Not everyone agrees with that. And there are legitimate criticisms of that. Okay? However, if you look at the alternative models that the critics are providing as an alternative, they're mostly cyclic cosmologies. So you need to be careful about appealing to these critics.
No.
Because you have to come up.
That's your opinion.
No, that's all right. Tell me.
Psychic cosmology
Cyclics.
are the main ones that are opposing it.
Yes.
Okay, when was this study done on the cosmic background radiation? When was it done?
What, the first study?
No, the study you just come out with that there's multiverse, and you just stated that.
That was a Planck data. It was released, I believe, in 2014, if my memory serves, or 2013. The first, well, they released more data, but the first release, I think, was 2013 or 2014.
So the first amount of data, when was the first amount of data released that inferred there could be a multiverse? When was the first amount of data released?
Well, I guess probably it was a WMAP data, because they found, so inflation is thought to predict, there's a number called NS, and simple models of inflation would predict that NS equals 0.96, and WMAP reported that they found evidence for inflation, and that was mid-2000s.
Now, with regards to the multiverse theory, has it been around before the mid-2000s or around the mid-2000s?
The first papers, before, sure.
Okay, so now I'll explain why there's a problem here, and whoever's listening wants to understand this. With regards to neo-Darwinism and the whole atheist view is trying to prove things, is that you come up with an answer to something and then you try to find the evidence, which is the wrong scientific approach. If you want to say that the multiverse is true, you should have had evidence of the multiverse before, or any kind of evidence that infers it. Let me finish your point. You should have had some kind of evidence that infers the multiverse before you find the evidence. You understand? A simple example now. If I find, for example, a mobile phone in the middle of the desert, I'm not going to automatically assume, without any evidence, that it came about by itself. It just randomly made itself into existence. I'm not going to infer that. Same with the multiverse. The theory has been around for a long time, and you just stated that the major kind of evidence that I've come across that infers the multiverse is in the mid-2000s. So why, this is the neo-Darwinistic view where they try and push an idea. The reason why the multiverse theory came about to begin with, one of Stephen Hawking's contemporaries, he stated this, that the multiverse theory is only being used to up the probabilities of the atheistic view.
Crap.
100% that's
nonsense.
You say it's nonsense. It's the reality.
It's not.
It's the reality.
You're wrong. Okay, let me explain why you're wrong. Okay, so firstly, the multiverse was inferred as a calculation, a calculated consequence of inflationary cosmology. It was not done to try and respond to fine-tuning. Okay, and in fact, the top theistic, no, it's not just my opinion. The top theistic, okay, who? Name one. So tell me one.
I could come up with evidence why that's.
Tell me one.
I've read up on it, but I can't say that.
You can't name even one.
To be honest with you, I don't go around memorising the names of scientists.
Okay. All right, fine. Okay. So you've got. So we can't. Okay. All right. Okay. Let me say this. Right. One of the best theists who advocates fine-tuning is a guy called Luke Barnes. Okay. He's a professional astrophysicist, and he's I disagree with some of the things he said, but even he agreed that it was false that the multiverse was invented to deal with fine-tuning. That is just wrong. Okay. How do we know this? Because you can calculate. It's a pure calculation. What is the consequence of our simplest models of inflationary cosmology? And the way that they generate a multiverse is that once inflation, we can look through how inflation was came up with. What were they trying to solve? They were trying to solve a problem in cosmology, which was that it seemed that the Big Bang predicted that there were a number of particles called monopoles. Okay? And we don't observe these particles. So it looks like our best theories of physics are wrong. So the question was, how can we fix physics such that it agrees with observations, okay, so that there's no monopoles. Alan Guth showed that if you have a period of extra rapid expansion called inflation, you would fix the monopole problem, okay? Then what happened was other scientists, Alex Valenkin, Richard Gott,
Alex Guth came up with the theory.
Alan Guth,
yeah. He came with the
Hang on, let me just finish this point, okay? So what happened then was other scientists calculated what the consequences of this theory was, and they showed that if this theory is true, then it is likely generating a multiverse, okay? And that is independent of any considerations about fine-tuning. That's just a pure calculation. It's a pure consequence of the fact that if you have the inflating space expand at such a speed, yeah, and it decays at such a speed, then it must generate a multiverse. It's not done as it's not done as a way to get out of fine-tuning. Okay, you can look at the early papers, you can follow the maths, and you can see.
Because I'm an amateur,
Yeah.
with regards to this whole thing of it must generate a multiverse. What does this entail exactly?
Sorry?
What exactly does this entail?
Do you want to know the mechanics?
So does this entail that the whole universe there'll be a whole sequence of events where another universe will be created?
Yes.
That mirrors our universe, and then there'll be an Earth there. There'll be
other universes.
Other universes and things
Yeah.
like that. That's what it entails.
Yes.
Okay, so the basic thing I would say to you is that with regards to that.
And if we want to know if this is true, we can test the theory and see if experiments match the theory. Okay? Now, when I say must, I don't know if I did say must. What I was saying is this is the most likely consequence. As we understand the theory, this is what it appears to predict. Now, it could be wrong. Okay? And it could be, yeah. But the evidence so far, I would say, is in favour of the theory. Now, it could be wrong. It's not definitive evidence. Okay? With regards to the cosmic microwave background.
Which evidence?
The anisotropism and the cosmic microwave background match models of inflation that predict a multiverse. Okay? That's the evidence. Now, is it decisive evidence? No. And could it be wrong? Yes. But it's not the case that there's no evidence. Okay? Yeah, but of course, all gravity is a theory. That's not a criticism.
It's fact. It's fact.
Right. But okay, the fact that it's a theory is not a problem.
No.
It's a problem.
Gravity is fact.
The theory has been proven wrong. For example, Darwin, in the last chapter of his book, what did he mention? Problems in my theory.
Yeah.
Why? Because it was a theory.
Okay, but theories and facts are not different things. I mean, sorry, they're not. They are different things. Sorry, what I meant was they're not rungs on a ladder with facts at the top and theories at the bottom. And so therefore, that's what I'm trying to argue. Okay, we have different levels of evidence for theories. And so the evidence for inflation is not so strong that we can call it a fact. I agree. But it is, I would say, the best favoured theory that we have right now for the origin of galactic structures. Okay? There aren't other theories that have better evidence for them at the moment.
Why you don't
And that's
take them on then?
okay.
That's evidence.
Sorry,
What I would say to you is that that's stretching it a bit by saying that the best explanation of the inflation and other things that you mentioned like that. I haven't looked into it, so I can't go deep into it.
Okay.
Is that
So maybe you shouldn't say statements like you can never check it experimentally, because you can.
No, I never said that myself.
You did say that. That was what you said originally.
Let me finish. What I said was major scientists, now you're saying name them. I don't go around naming them. If I was to, I'll come back to you with regards to, I know for a fact that I've researched that there are scientists saying the multiverse, other multiverses, they can't be observed.
Oh yeah, no. What I was disputing was that there was okay. I would say most scientists that are cosmologists that study the early universe, because actually most cosmologists don't study the early universe. They may disagree with the multiverse. They do. There are definitely scientists that make those statements, but they don't make the statement that the multiverse was invented in order to get around to fine-tuning. They accept that the multiverse is a calculated outcome of inflationary cosmology. Now they might say Alan Guth, Alex Valenkin, Paul Steinhardt, Richard Gott, these are the people that wrote the first papers about this. Now, they may disagree that inflation is correct. They may disagree with how inflation is being analysed. Those are all legitimate criticisms. So I'm not claiming that there isn't controversy about this. And they may be wrong. But we have to be careful. Sorry?
It's good that you're being honest about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's important that we're honest. Okay? I'm not here saying the multiverse is a fact and it's been proven. That would be rubbish. And I would vehemently argue against anyone that said that. Okay? Right. Okay. Fine. But it doesn't follow that there's no evidence and no way it can ever be tested, because that's not true. Okay? There are ways it can be tested. Okay? And so far, the
It's like Alan Drew personally mentioned there was the existence of monopoles, and from that he inferred this is related to inflation, and there must be,
But what he did was he came up with a potential solution to the monopole problem.
to the monopole, and his
Okay.
potential solution.
No, hang on. Then what happened was there was a number of other problems, and one of them was the fine-tuning problem that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So one of them was the expansion rate of the early universe. This is called the flatness problem, and it looks like it needs to be fine-tuned to a large number of decimal places. Okay. So the initial conditions have to be set very finely.
It seemed improbable.
Okay. Right. It seemed extremely improbable. And what inflation theory shows is that that's false. Okay. Because the calculation that you do to say that this is very improbable makes an assumption, and the calculation assumes that gravity is always attractive. Now, in Newton's theory of gravity, gravity is always attractive, but it's only determined by mass and distance. Okay, but now we have a better theory of gravity, and that's Einstein's theory of gravity. Okay, Einstein's theory of gravity tells you that mass is not the only thing that generates a gravitational field. Pressure can generate a gravitational field, and you can have negative pressure. Okay? So if you have negative pressure, if you have a period of inflation which is negative pressure, then what happens is that calculation that shows that it's improbable, that shows that it's finely tuned, gets turned upside down. Yeah? Because the gravitational field is now negative. And let me finish. Yeah, with regards to the fine-tuning the example that you gave.
One example.
Okay, sure. Yeah, okay, sure, but let's deal with one at a time, okay? Now, what that shows is that it's not fine-tuned, because that calculation of fine-tuning had an assumption, okay? And that assumption is reversed in inflation. And so the initial condition, the initial value for omega can have any number at all. And it doesn't matter. Whereas under a scenario without inflation, it was thought had to be finely tuned. And what Goose showed was that no, it doesn't have to be finely tuned. And then what happened was inflation predicted a number of observable features of the cosmic microwave background. And you can go on NASA's website. Go on NASA's WMAP website. Okay, in fact we can do it now. You can see. And they say we have found evidence for inflation. Okay, and I interviewed. Yeah, sure, I'm sorry. Yeah.
First of all, just from the basic development studies,
Yeah.
you mentioned that there was the observance of monopoles. And then from
No. It's the non-observance of monopoles.
none of those are monopoles.
Yeah.
And then from that, the theory was analysed that there must be linked to inflation. This is one theory proposed, and you mentioned this is one of the theories proposed. As in, there could be other theories, but that's one of the theories that must be linked to inflation. Something to do with inflation, that's why there's no monopole.
That is considered the best explanation.
The best explanation.
Yeah, or certainly was at the
that's
time.
one of the explanations.
Yeah.
Okay, now I would say to you in regards to that, okay, there could be other explanations for why there wasn't the existence of monopoles.
Yes, it could be. Yeah, and there are.
Which is not, and there are, it's not linked to inflation, or it's not
That's
linked,
correct.
and it's not linked to the multiverse or observing the multiverse.
Correct.
So that's what scientists will say that, the multiverse can't be observed. They'll have their own theory for the course for why there's no monopoles being observed. Okay, so that's the one. So they'll have their own theory, whatever. Whether it's valid or not, I can't say, because again, you've observed your thing, I haven't gone and looked at this yet.
Okay.
So I'm weak in that point.
Okay.
But now what I would say to you is this. As you mentioned, is that with regards to this whole thing of whether or not that specific thing was observed, we know it's a theory number one.
Yeah.
And we know that it's not fact. We know that it's not something which is definite. It might be the best explanation, but
Agreed.
it's not definite.
Agreed.
Then the next step is, that's one example I've given you of fine-tuning. The second thing I would say to you is that we do not live in a world where we base our theories or our ideas based upon something which is probable, but we're not factually sure about it. We base upon what we know is fact and what we know is the reality of the situation. So, for example, just the fact,
Okay, so something has to be observed for it to be a fact.
No. You can infer it based upon certain calculations which prove like physics and things like that, like what you mentioned.
Right.
Now, the reason I'm making this point is the reason why as a theist, I disagree with you, is because I understand your point.
Yeah.
Okay, that one thing was observed. Let's say if it was observed. Again, there might be theories against it.
And there are. Yeah.
The reason I'm a theist is for this reason. In the world that we live in, that's only one small argument in the, you could say at least hundreds of arguments for the fine-tuning of the universe, and the hundreds of examples of the fine-tuning of the universe.
Well, most physicists would not agree with that. They might think there might be tens of cases of fine-tuning,
you might say that,
not hundreds.
But from the examples that I've looked at, there's a large number of cases.
Most physicists who claim fine-tuning would say it's in the tens, not in the hundreds.
Okay, you've said that. For my research, I disagree with you.
Okay, well, what's your source?
Again, I'll have to come back to you.
If you don't provide a source, then we can't really get anywhere, can we?
Where it comes down to is you're discussing it from an angle where you must have either researched it, memorized it, you've got all the scientists memorized, Alan Turing, this, and that kind of thing. For me, I'll come to have a discussion with you from what I know. And then
did you learn it from a Darwin course?
Not from a Darwin course.
Where did you get it from?
From researching it myself.
Where?
From reading the books on it, going online, looking at the research articles on it.
Can you remember any books that you read?
Again, a good example I'll give you is, for example, I was reading into the golden ratio.
Okay.
The observance of the golden ratio.
Yeah.
You must have been about that.
Yeah.
The observance of the golden ratio in many different things.
Yeah.
In magnets, in the leaves of a tree, in lots of different things, in the way the universe is created.
Yeah.
It was observed as the golden ratio.
There are interesting ratios in the world. Yeah. So.
Well, not interesting. It's observable that it follows a certain.
Well, I never said it wasn't observed.
Yeah, of course. But my point now is, so looking into that, that's what I found. Have I memorized it? No, I haven't memorized the exact source. Can I come back to you with that? Yes, I can.
Okay, well, we can talk about that when you have the source.
Yeah, that's a sincere way to come across.
Okay,
say to me, come back to me and I'll come back.
Okay, fine. That's fine.
That's a sincere way, but I have to say, okay, I'll shoot your idea down because you haven't memorized every person.
No. It's not because you haven't memorized it. I think what you're saying.
That's a weak argument.
Okay. Well, let's deal with the arguments that you've presented. Okay. So first off, you said, well, the inflation is the best explanation for the monopole problem, but there could be other explanations. Okay, you're right. There could be other explanations. Absolutely true. But the reason why cosmologists find inflation compelling is not just because it fixed the monopole problem. It also fixed many other problems. And in fact, probably the best reason to take inflation seriously is that it actually makes predictions for things that we observe, and it also seems to generate the structures in galaxies that we see. Okay? Now, even if you think maybe the predictions that monopoles should exist are just wrong. We base them on theories, and those theories could be wrong. Okay? But the fact that it also does these other things, particularly that it can explain galaxy functions.
Problematic is that these are theories within theories. For example, the theory is that why a monopole is not there, then that theory is disproved. There's a theory within that.
Right. Well, all of physics is interlocking, right?
Of course, but it's like a house built on weak foundations.
Right.
They're based upon theories which could be disproved.
But that's true with fine-tuning as well, is it not?
No, it's not. So
how is it not?
Because, for example, when you
gave the example.
I'll give you a good example. When you're in court and you have a criminal, and there's a number of evidence and circumstances which link the criminal to the crime. His DNA was found on the knife. There was photographic evidence of him carrying out the murder. Evidences that gather together present a strong argument. So with fine-tuning, when there's loads of examples presented together, let's say there's one or two.
Right, but all of those are disputed by other scientists, agreed? So the same argument that you use against the multiverse can be used against fine-tuning, correct? And also, you cannot observe fine-tuning. Have you got any experimental data that confirms that anything is fine-tuned?
Any observable evidence of what?
Yeah, any experimental data that confirms that anything in physics is finely tuned.
What I would say is what you can observe is the fact that we're here.
Well, of course, but that's not the same as finely tuned, is it?
It is in a sense.
No, it isn't.
It is in a sense because
in what sense?
From the other planets that we go to, or let's say the other universes, you will dispute this, that our universe seems to be more finely tuned than the other multiple universes out there. Is that correct or not?
Depends what you mean by finely tuned.
Finely tuned in the sense that for life, for the existence.
Well, obviously we are alive, so clearly.
So clearly, there's something there.
But that's not what fine tuning means, though. No,
In a sense it is.
no, that's well in a different sense to what everyone else uses it. The way that fine tuning is used, there's many definitions of the phrase fine tuning.
What's the definition?
Okay, so the definition that's relevant to this debate, because physicists will say a theory is finely tuned in a different sense to what the way it's used in these atheist-theist debates. The way that it's used in these atheist-theist debates is that if you change the value of a constant by some small amount, then we couldn't be here to exist. Okay? Now, what I'm saying is you cannot do an experiment to confirm that is true. That's pure theoretical extrapolation. Okay? You cannot do an experiment where you change a constant of nature. It can't be done. Right? So, if you're going to reject the multiverse because you can't confirm it experimentally, you should also reject the fine tuning because that can't be confirmed experimentally either. And if you're going to reject, let me finish. No, it hasn't. Right? And also, if you're going to reject the multiverse because other physicists don't agree with it, because it's controversial, you should also reject fine-tuning for the same reason, because there's plenty of physicists that don't think that the universe is finely tuned. Okay? So you die by your own sword.
No, you don't. You know why?
Why?
Because of the same reason why you believe, from your evidence, what you researched, that the multiverse theory is correct.
No, I never said I believe the multiverse was correct. I didn't. I don't believe that.
It's the most probable.
I say it's got some evidence in favour of it.
And it's the most probable, you said. You said it's
I'd say it's probably the leading horse in the race to try and understand the origin of the origin of structure in the universe. It's probably the best theory that we have. But I don't say I believe in it. It might be wrong. I don't think the evidence is strong enough to justify a strong belief.
So what are you propagating then?
What I'm saying is that the evidence for a multiverse is better, is the best explanation for fine-tuning, if there is fine-tuning. If there is fine-tuning. Okay? But the problem is, what I'm saying is, if you...
Very different here is simply this. You seem to believe that the issues of fine-tuning, the issues of the multiverse, you have your opinion on the theories that you've researched, and your opinion is based upon this. You believe it's most probable that if for fine-tuning, the answer to it is multiverse. And what I would say is...
Yes, hello.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Now what I would say is the exact opposite. So what you said is, I would say the exact opposite.
Based on what?
Based on the research that I've done, again.
But you have to give us a reason. You can't just say, I've done some research and therefore I disagree. You have to give us the reasons why.
The reasons I've given
Okay, so what is the reason?
As a person who can't present to you my reasons, because I don't have a standing in terms of...
So your reason is you can't present any reason?
No, my reason is this. My reason is... Let me twist my words right now. My reason is what I told you before. My reasons are, which I've told you already, is that, as you've agreed with, there are major scientists that do disagree with the fact that...
Right, I agree with that.
You agree with that?
But I think you're missing the implication of that.
I read the research of these major scientists.
Okay.
You understand?
Right,
So for you
and
to
who
say-
are they?
Again,
But I think you're missing...
you just agreed to me. You just agreed with the amazing scientists. And now you're
Yes.
thinking, who are they?
Yes.
I thought you know because you already know this.
No, I do, and I'm going to tell you who they are and what they say.
But why ask me who are they?
Okay, I'll tell you why I'm asking you. Okay, because first off, you can't collect these scientists. You can't quote these scientists selectively.
because they're not-
You have to understand what they're saying.
In cosmology.
Right, you have to understand what they're saying, okay, and why they're saying it. So some of them basically just disagree that the universe is finely tuned. Okay.
Without any evidence.
No, not without evidence. The whole point is you can't. The point is you can't do an experiment to confirm fine tuning. You have to use theoretical extrapolation.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
But things that have been observed.
Now there's like what?
Well, physical constants have been observed.
Well, we observe the constants, but we don't observe their fine tuning.
Well, of course, but that's the same with most things, with regards to the Big Bang and things like that. You don't observe the Big Bang, do you?
No,
observe
it's
it
different.
based upon-
That's different.
It's not different because you observe it based upon things.
No. I tell you, no, it's different. Let me explain why it's different. Okay? For the Big Bang, the theory makes predictions for observable quantities that we don't yet know. Then we go and make the observations. And if the observations match precisely what the theory says, then we say the theory is likely to be true. Okay? That's not the case with fine-tuning. No, it isn't. All right, tell me a prediction that was made, okay, for a fine-tuned constant that was then observed.
I mean, one I'll give you is, again, what I mentioned to you, and you agree with,
Show me.
with regards to the expansion of the universe.
Right.
And if it
So
expanded-
what was the prediction?
The exact prediction was that if any variable was changed, like you mentioned this,
Yeah.
you mentioned that it seemed to have been to many decimal points, that if the expansion of the universe was changed in any way, in terms
But
of,
that's not, no, but first off,
then it would have collapsed in
no, I think you've completely misunderstood that. Okay, so first off, as I said, you don't observe what happens when it's changed. You can't observe that. You just have to make a calculation. So there's no observation there that confirms what you say.
But
Okay?
the calculation is based
No, of course the calculation is based off
on physics and things that have been observed.
but so is the calculation of a multiverse based on physics. So they're in the same
But the
boat.
reason it's not the same thing is because of this, because with regards to them things, the scientists would agree that, okay, now that answers have come up, let's say before the multiverse theory came from, before this research was done,
There isn't a multiverse theory, that's a misunderstanding. It's an inflationary theory that predicts a multiverse. The multiverse is a consequence of the theory called inflation. Okay, so that's a misunderstanding.
Okay.
Okay?
I mean,
Now,
I'll have to agree
and
with
your
that.
case of the expansion rate of the early
Well, I
universe
was saying-
being finely tuned has actually been disconfirmed by the evidence, because in inflationary cosmology, the expansion rate of the universe does not need to be finely tuned. So then we look for evidence for inflation and we find some. Okay? So in fact, the example that you gave, the exact opposite is true. The evidence is pointing against it.
what I was saying with regards to the inflation theory, again, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
there are scientists on both sides of the argument.
Yes. Oh, remind me to come back to that because I want to address that point. Go ahead.
Come back to that. So the main point I'm trying to make is that the argument here is, your argument is coming from the inflation point of view, my argument is coming from the theistic point of view, that inflation could just be one part of the bigger picture, which is with regards to other things, with regards to the other variables in fine-tuning. Now, of course, you're saying there could be people that disagree with that, but simply disagreeing with something is not evidence of it being true.
Agreed.
You understand?
Agreed, of course.
Now, the fact that
Of course.
there are a lot of scientists that do state the universe is finely tuned, and there are many variables that agree with that.
And when you say the variables agree with that, what do you mean?
As in, there are many things that have been observed that seem to suggest this fine tuning.
No, but what's the observation?
Do you agree with me that scientists state, you said they're in the tens? Because now you're asking me things with regards to, you want me to pull up observations or exact facts. But you and me both know, I'm stating to you, what I've researched.
Shall we walk away from the drums?